Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about was actually when it comes to U.S. citizens, and we're talking about recycling their electronics, the privacy. There's literally, hundreds of thousands of devices that get recycled every year, and there's little accountability or tracking with regard to where they go and what's happening. So, Mr. Pellicane, I'm going to ask you to maybe start on this first and just talk a little about what do you think is the threat, what's the risk for the 120,000 laptops, 350,000 cell phones that get recycled every year? Are U.S. citizens' private information being put at risk with these devices being discarded and e-waste?
Yeah, there's definitely a risk there, right, with that data being recycled if it's not being handled properly, if it's not being handled by certified organizations. We're certified to the National Association of Information Destruction's AAA certification, which means that we handle that information properly. But if it's not being handled by the right collectors, by the right recyclers, that does create a risk. Not only with that data being accessible, but also with the potential for counterfeits and other issues there as well. That's why we support the Secure E-Waste Export and Recycling Act to ensure that those products are handled domestically.
Right. And then also, it's been confirmed that counterfeit parts are from China are ending up in critical defense systems here in the United States. Obviously, this is an issue the Defense Department has long identified as presenting a legitimate threat to our nation's readiness. Much of the material used in counterfeit electronic parts is e-waste shipped from the United States to the rest of the world, from the rest of the world to China. This e-waste goes through a process known as blacktopping, where parts are made to look like brand new to the naked eye. Then these products are resold on the marketplace. How do counterfeit parts make it into the advanced U.S. Missile systems and other military equipment undetected?
Yeah, you definitely speak to something that is particularly concerning, and definitely was one of the impetuses for that Secure Electronics Exports and Recycling Act that's recently been introduced. I'm not an expert in that area of how those items are ending up in our systems, and would have to defer to those experts, but would definitely look to provide you with that information after the hearing.
Do you have any ideas on what things we could further be doing to make sure that this doesn't happen, that we don't end up with these counterfeit parts from Communist China?
Yeah, and that's where, again, I'll point to that Secure E-Waste Export and Recycling Act that was introduced in the House, and obviously continuing to follow that legislation as it moves forward.
Yeah. Do any of our other witnesses have any thoughts on what we can do to prevent? Yeah, please go ahead.
So, counterfeit parts are an issue. I actually come from the defense electronics background. I used to be on the Harpoon missile program. So obviously we were very sensitive to the high quality of our parts. I will say that with the growing complexity of integrated circuits, so my company, we try to recover parts for repair and recycling. And it is very, very difficult. Reballing a ball grid array takes extremely difficult procedures. We've actually found it's better to just go buy new parts than try to recover the parts. And I think what you'll see in China is a lot of those counterfeit parts are really commercial grade parts made at poor facilities that are remarked because it is just too expensive to take these parts and actually get them to new condition. It's a significant challenge to do that. Hopefully in the future, we will get better at recovering ICs because it would actually be much more sustainable. And, to combat that, at least, when I was in the defense business, 100% testing on parts was something that we required.
Yeah, because if you're trying to refurbish these things and it's not a super clean room, just a small particle of dust can...
Well, even worse is on a ball grid array, the connections are so close together and you have to get those each reballed, and it is a very, very difficult and expensive process.
Mm-hmm. So I take it when you say that you were requesting or asking for all these parts to be 100% testing of the parts, that's not happening for some of these parts that we're going into some of these advanced systems the Defense Department is buying.
100% testing would, and again, I am no expert and I can provide you more information at a later time, but 100% testing at least in our situation, and this is a few years back, would reveal the difference between a commercial and a defense-grade part.
So, but is it accurate to say that if the Defense Department was having a problem with this, they were not doing 100% testing?
I can't answer that question.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.